Hello, hello, hello. We're in 2026, but we'll be looking back at 2025 on this episode of Matt and Cheryl's Gen Excellent Playlist. I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Mike.
Hey, who's that guy over
Mike.
there? Mike is joining us. Of course, Cheryl and Mike co own the Silver Platters chain of record stores in the Puget Sound area. And Mike will lend his expertise about new releases from 2025 and pick his favorites. We'll all pick our favorites in 2025, as we have done the last few years in our end of year or beginning of year episodes. We're going to slip a couple of 1984 songs on the playlist. Of course, we continue our exercise of building our Gen Excellent playlist. This is
Gen
the sound.
Excellent.
Gen Excellent, dude. So the exercise, of course, is to look back on the music of our lives. Cheryl and I are Gen Xers. Mike is almost a Gen Xer, not quite. A little. He's got a
He's
few years on us,
he's a boomer cusper, I think.
but he's bringing his Yoda-like musical knowledge to us today.
And it's a good thing because you guys are forcing me to listen to music from 2025.
We began our Gen Excellent tour in 1972. Now we're the early stages of 1984. We are almost to the peak as we add more music going forward, and then we start to subtract when we get past the middle 80s, heading down toward the late 90s. But today's going to be mainly about 2025 music. And yeah, Cheryl, I guess we had to shame you here late in 2025 to
Yes.
get on the beat. Now, it's not like I listen to a ton of new music, but I try to listen to some every day. The problem with me is, even though I force myself, I have a disciplined, structured way that I go about listening to music. I think I've brushed on it before. Slight OCD probably in my chemical
I'd
makeup,
say a little bit, yeah.
but I'm finding that with each passing year, like the second thing I'll listen to every day is new music, but more often than not, it ends up being background noise more than anything else. So it's not, I'm living with new music less and less as the years go by. So really, none of the albums that came out in 2025 did I listen to enough to really judge what was my favorite album. I'll talk about a couple that I listened to the most and the ones that have stuck with me the most. And there was one song that really hit home with me, and that's going to be my song of the year. But I know that you didn't listen to any new music until the last couple weeks of the year, right?
Let's just say that the year just got away from me because every
Yes.
time we do this at the beginning of the year, I'm like, I'm going to listen to new music. I'm going to start in January. I might listen to a few things in like January and February. And then all of a sudden it's November. And I'm like, oh, oops, I haven't really listened to any new music this year. And this year it was basically December once I got to that point. So I don't do anything organized or regimented like you do. So whatever comes, comes, and nothing new has come to me until later in the year this year. And also, I feel like the last couple years, I've had maybe 4 or 5 or even up to 10 prog albums that I've really enjoyed for the year. I haven't talked about all of them, but I've picked, my favorites, and it was kind of hard to choose the ones that I like the most. This year, even the prog stuff it's pretty sparse. So I do have a few, but it's not as easy as it has been, I feel like, the last few years. So
Actually, I would say I'm listening to more new music in the last couple of years than the last 20 years before that. And
oh
that's
yeah, me
main
too.
because of streaming. I mean, I've slowly being dragged into the streaming age. I still keep a lot of my old listing. So for years and years and years, most of the new music came into my life came via Uncut magazine. So UK Monthly, and they've been publishing this since the late 1990s. And I got into Uncut pretty much on the ground floor. I think they were probably on their third or fourth issue when I first started buying it. So I've been buying these two music monthlies from England for decades, Uncut and Mojo, of course, which is the better known
Yeah.
publication. But Mojo doesn't tend to put out a lot of new music. So both these come with free CDs every month. Mojos are usually themed somehow, and it's usually collections of older music, maybe a little new stuff thrown in. Occasionally they'll have new music, but they do put out a best of the year at the end of the year. So one other magazine I read regularly, and it comes out semi-annually. It's the Big Takeover, which is more underground and punk kind of stuff. And Jack Rabbit, who publishes this, always curious to see what his picks are too. In fact, the album he picked number one in the latest issues. Probably the one I'm going to go with too, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Before we get to the new music, I do want to talk about the songs we're going to add to the playlist. The reason we're not spending a lot of time on either of these is we already have spent a lot of time on both of these artists. So we've already put songs on the playlist from the two artists I'm going to talk about here, including one from a particular album, 90125. The band is Yes. The song was Owner of a Lonely Heart, number one hit, the lead single off that album, released in 83. We've already put that on the playlist, courtesy of Cheryl.
Yep.
And my favorite song on that album was the second single release, and it's the second song on side 2 of the vinyl. It comes with a buddy, a sister, a brother, and I'm going to put them in there together on our playlist because that's the way I like to listen to the song. It's got an instrumental song that precedes it on the album. It's kind of like a fanfare that leads into it, and I can't really listen to one without the other and be satisfied. So we're going to put them both on, and we're talking about the songs Cinema and Leave It. So most of us remember Owner of a Lonely Heart, got a lot of radio play. It was the number one song in the United States. It was a departure for Yes, a whole new streamlined, more pop-oriented sound for a band that was a legendary progressive rock act. A lot of that had to do with the producer, Trevor Horn, who was actually a band member briefly on their preceding album, Drama. The band broke up for a time after that record. Trevor Horn, the producer, and the vocalist on that album, along with the keyboardist on that album, Jeff Downs, went on and formed the Buggles and had a hit with Video Killed the Radio Star, also on our playlist. Of course, that preceded the Drama album. They were drafted in after that. And then Horn began focusing on production. Jeff Downs joined Asia, joined by former Yes guitarist Steve Howe, and was on the first couple of Asia albums. Of course, the first Asia album included Heat of the Moment on our playlist.
Also on the playlist, yes.
So, Yes, kind of broken up briefly, but Chris Squire wanted to reassemble a new band. We've already talked about this. And then
We've talked about this a lot because I could talk about Yes for days.
Right. It eventually coalesced back into Yes when John Anderson joined late in the game. And then the band name was Cinema, but they ended up changing the name to Yes once John Anderson got back involved. But this instrumental track on side 2 of the 90125 record, they named Cinema. And I love the pairing of these two songs. Well, for one, Cinema is just a killer instrumental track showing Yes at their best, outstanding musicians across the board. But the 90125 album was easily their most heavily produced album of their career. Not to say that there wasn't a lot of work done by producers in the past, but Yes famously could reproduce pretty much anything on their records on stage, just due to their mastery of their instruments. Well, a little more difficult now with the technology being utilized here in 1983 with 90125. So you're going from this, rocking, cool instrumental track, which is essentially performed live in the studio by the band, into one of the more heavily produced songs on the record, Leave It, where Trevor Horn gets to showcase his skills behind the boards. A track that was hardly played live in the studio. It was built piece by piece in the studio, utilizing a lot of cutting-edge technology. So I love that juxtaposition of one leading into the other.
And basically, Leave It starts out a cappella, too.
Right.
So you go from this full-on live band instrumental right into the a cappella vocals, which is a pretty cool transition.
Yeah, it's kind of a throwback to doo-wop, where the voices are carrying a lot of the instrumental work on this record, at least early on in the record. The instruments do eventually come crashing in, and I mean crashing in with one of the biggest drum sounds anybody had ever heard up to that point with Alan White. Of course, heavily processed.
I mean, at least as big as the Phil Collins sound, maybe bigger.
Yeah, but the vocal arrangement is just something to behold. And the way this was pieced together in the studio, it sounds incredible. And that was Yes's claim to fame. When they first came out in the late 60s, they were heavily influenced by vocal acts like The Association, like Simon and Garfunkel, like Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They wanted to marry the multi-part folk harmonies with heavier rock instrumentation. That was their claim to fame from the get-go. So the vocal aspect has always been a part of it, and it was Anderson, Squire, and Howe, for the most part, handling the three-part harmonies. Of course, Howe is not on 90125, but what you do have is a superior vocalist in Trevor Rabin taking his
Yes,
place.
because
Yeah.
actually Steve Howe is not a good vocalist.
He's an all right harmony vocalist.
Yes,
but
and he sings
yeah.
lead like on some of the newer Yes stuff, and it's like, please do not let him ever sing lead. It's terrible. Trevor Rabin is an amazing vocalist. So between John Anderson, Trevor Rabin, and Chris Squire, you've got three really great vocalists working together, and it's amazing.
And John Anderson not involved in the composition of this song at all, which makes it kind of an outlier in the Yes catalog. A hit song or one of their bigger songs that he had no hand in composing.
Yeah, that's unusual. But in this era, I mean, Trevor Rabin came in with a lot of songs before John Anderson was even invited into the band.
Yep.
And Chris Squire, too, was always really involved in writing and singing. Chris Squire, I love his voice. He has a great voice. It sounds very similar to John Anderson's, actually, but it's different enough that you can hear, when they do the harmonizing, too, that you can hear that there are three distinct voices there.
And if you get one of the later CD reissues of 90125, it'll have some of the demos that they recorded when they were Cinema before John Anderson came back, and you'll hear some Chris Squire leads on that. Of course, he put out a solo album in 76, right? Fish Out of Water, 75, 76.
I think. Yeah. I love that album.
I've never listened to it. I've got the...
Oh, I think it's the best of the Yes solo albums.
Which isn't saying a lot, but...
I really like John Anderson's solo albums, although most people aren't really...
It is one of the stronger ones. It's worth having.
It sounds more like a Yes album, so that helps. But, I mean, Rick Wakeman has some great solo albums, and they sound very Yes-like. John Anderson, I like several of his solo albums, but anyone who is a Yes fan needs to have that Chris Squire album in their collection because it just like slots very nicely into the Yes catalog. And the video for Leave It was really cool.
Yes, Godley and Cream video. And it was one of the early uses of CGI in a music video.
Yeah, it was like just them with a white background and they were kind of folding on themselves and flipping around. It was kind of trippy and it was pretty cool at the time. It was cutting edge.
So Mike, what are your memories of Leave It and the 90125 album coming out as somebody who had probably followed Yes for a number of years before that?
Well, I know I had it on cassette and it was in the car quite a bit. For some reason, 90125, Bruce Springsteen, The River, The Scorpions, Blackout, Asia,
my first tape,
all kind of meld together for me.
Things you listen to in the car.
Yes, that I listened to a lot in the car.
Did you ever have an 8-track player in your car?
No, just cassette.
He's not that old. But I would say a cassette's probably not the best way to listen to this because it is so well produced and it sounds so good, especially Leave It. I mean, Leave It just sounds incredible on headphones because you get the panning.
I remember the original CD sounded incredible on my stereo system in college.
I'm going to be honest, kind of the audiophile side of me, when I listen to high-res versions of it, I still am wanting more. I think it's thin a little bit.
Not as trebly as Relayer.
Relayer hurts my ears. Like it's painful.
And going for the one, that one.
Yeah,
it's not it's just thin. The dynamic range seems off to me a little bit.
Well, maybe you need to go back to listening to it on cassette in your car.
Yeah.
That's the way you really are meant to hear it. Trevor Horn has a very heavy hand on 90125, and so it does have an 80s production sound to it in that way that either you really like it or you don't. It's not very warm, not as trebly as Going for the One, but it does have that kind of tinniness to it that feels very 80s.
So that is our second track off 90125. The other song I want to talk about briefly is the Go-Go's Head Over Heels. Now, we've already talked about the Go-Go's at length, including 2 tracks off their debut record. Could have easily had 3 songs on the playlist already. Vacation just fell a little bit short. but
Yeah.
they were one of the great singles bands of the era. Not that they didn't have some good album tracks as well. I think Beauty and the Beast is certainly an album worth owning. The other two albums, not as strong as the debut, but going back and listening to the Talk Show album, their third, from whence Head Over Heels came, I enjoyed it more than I remembered. It's a more serious Go-Go's. Now they're three albums in. They've had hit songs. They've had fame. They've been all over MTV, style icons, and they're starting to wear on each other. The
Yes.
band is
Yes.
starting to splinter at this point. A little too much partying, a little too much ego. One of the things that kind of split the band is they decided they were going to share publishing equally, and Jane Weedland composed about 3/4 of their third album. It's like, wait a
Yeah.
minute.
Well, and the last straw for her was there was a song on this album that she wrote that she wanted to sing lead, and they said no.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
wanted the continuity of Belinda singing all the songs, and Jane pretty much just quit at that point. She was like, "That's it. I'm done." After the tour was over.
But I think we talked about this, Belinda, obviously the most recognizable face, the front woman, very recognizable voice, even though she's not technically some great vocalist. Jane Weedland, just kind of a goofy, squeaky voice character and
Yeah.
memorable that way. The real star is Charlotte Caffey, musically.
Yes.
As an underrated, kind of influential guitarist. We talked about
Mhm.
that at length on the first album. But on this track, it's her piano playing that's really the hook in the instrumental section. That's what really makes this song stand out. Of course, she was the primary composer on this one as well as We Got the Beat. But it's that pounding piano that really makes this song sing.
Yeah, which is unusual for them. I mean, it makes it kind of like a 60s rave up, like it really changes the dynamic. And I agree, the piano is what really drives this song. And you don't hear that a lot on their other hits. It's usually guitar driven. And I think this album, half the album, I think is a really good pop album. The problem is that the other half is just very mediocre, but there's some really good songs on this. There's like 4 or 5 really, really good songs on this album.
Yeah, Vacation is their weakest album, their second one
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, the singles are they're all killer. I mean, it's one of the great singles bands of the 80s, certainly. And this is right up there. Our Lips Are Sealed is my favorite Go-Go song, and that's one of my favorite songs, period. Not just of the 80s, period. One of the greatest pop songs, I think. But this one's another killer and a great way to go out. They would eventually reform a couple of times and record a fourth album way later in the game. I've never listened to it or anything off of it
No.
yet, so
I don't even know if Jane Weedland's on that album. And she had a solo album that came out in 84. It's pretty good, actually. I listened to it and I liked it. It's not as good as Talk Show, but I think it's a respectable album. So
Yeah, and then she did the Cool Summer with the Sparks, and that
no, she did Cool Places.
Oh, Cool Places, yes.
Cool Summer was Bananarama.
That was Cruel Summer. She did Cool Places with Sparks, yes. And actually, there's a song on Talk Show that she wrote with Ron and Russell, and it's one of the best songs on the album, and it actually was the third single they released.
Should also mention Martin Rushent is the producer on this, who produced some of my favorite records. The Buzzcock stuff. He did the second Flop album, their major label album. We'll talk about Flop eventually, the great unheralded, unsung Seattle rock band that got overshadowed by the grunge acts. Also, Human League Dare, that was Martin Rushent.
Love that album.
So yeah, Mike, your thoughts on the Go-Go's and Head Over Heels?
I was kind of a Go-Go's fan a little bit, but my sister really was. And I know she had Talk Show on vinyl, and we'd listen to it. But I don't remember being that enthused about it. That was around the time that Belinda started going out with Mike Marshall of the Dodgers, and being a big baseball fan, I always thought that was kind of weird.
All right, so that's our latest additions to the 1984 playlist. Leave It by Yes, Head Over Heels by the Go-Go's. Now it's time to fast forward to the present, jump in that DeLorean and get back to current times. Why don't you start us off, Cheryl, since you've been diving in head first here over the last few weeks into 2025 music?
Okay.
I know we're diverging on one band here, as you have to sink in
I'm
for
going to
me.
let Mike talk about a lot of the stuff that I've been listening to because he's the one that introduced me to a lot of these things. Usually I start with the prog albums. I just go straight to that and see if there's
We would expect nothing less of you.
if there's anything interesting that has been released in the year 2025. And I came up with 3 albums and actually a honorable mention as well. 2 of them are Norwegian bands, which all the best prog from the current era comes from Scandinavian countries. So, and I'm so bad at pronunciation. Okay, so the first one, Lars Fredrik Foisli. I can't remember how to say his name. He actually is the keyboardist for the band Wobbler and Chronicles of Father Robin, who are 2 of my favorite prog bands of the last 10 years. He actually plays keyboards and drums on this album, which I think is really cool. I mean, anybody who's into more current prog will know Wobbler and Chronicles of Father Robin and know that they're like 2 of the coolest bands that have come out in a long time. It's in the symphonic prog vein, like, yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, especially. Jethro Tull kind of at times has like kraut rock leanings to it. It's really good, and it's definitely one that anyone who's into those kind of bands should listen to. He does sing as well, and he sings in Norwegian, but there's not that many vocals. It's mostly instrumental. The other one is a band called Agropelter, the Book of Hours. They're also from Norway. Multi-instrumentalist Kay Olsen, and surrounded by veterans of the Scandinavian prog scene. Genesis, Camel, that kind of sound with some classical stuff thrown in. This is the kind of album that I just kind of like having on in the background because it's all instrumental, and they're, of course, amazing musicians. It's one that you just want to listen to it all the way through. You know, just put the album on and let it play. The other one is actually an Italian prog band called Nuevo Era, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This one is mostly instrumental. It's one song, 36 minutes. And then it has a bonus track on the CD that's 16 minutes long. And, you know, they're singing in Italian. Also, once again, it's symphonic, which is what I really like, which is in the, yes, Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer vein. My honorable mention goes to Styx.
What?
Yes. Once again,
Styx put out an album in
they
2025?
put an album out in 2025. They also put out one in 2024, which was one of my favorite albums of the year.
All right, who's in it and who's not in it? Who's
Tommy
in the band?
Shaw and James Young are still in the band.
Okay, so no Dennis DeYoung.
Dennis hasn't been in the band for years.
I don't know. I didn't know.
Oh
they were still
yeah, no,
recording.
he left to start a solo career, like, you know, basically in the 80s. So they brought in a new vocalist, Larry Gowan, who's a Canadian guy. He's had a lot of bands before, you know, in the 80s, his own bands, and he's been with them for quite a while now. Tommy Shaw does sing lead on some songs and is the main songwriter. James Young is in the band still, but he's not really, I don't hear vocals from him or much songwriting from him. But Larry Gowan, I really, really like his voice a lot. And they sound more prog on this album than I think they ever have. They've always kind of been more like a prog adjacent band, really, because the Tommy Shaw influence has always been more on the rock side.
Yeah.
And the Dennis DeYoung has more been on like on the ballads.
And the theatrical.
Very theatrical.
Music, yeah.
So now they're definitely leaning more to actual prog, which, I mean, there's songs that sound like Alan Parsons. There's songs that sound like Yes. There's songs that sound like ELO. And I've talked in the past about the Flower Kings and Roine Stolt, who's the lead singer of the Flower Kings, and he's been in lots of other bands. He's kind of like a god in like current prog. And Larry Gowan's voice is very similar to his, and I just love his vocals. He doesn't sing every song. I prefer the songs that he does sing because they are more in the prog vein. I'd say half the album is really, really good. The rest of it is okay. There's nothing bad on it, but I was just so pleased to hear how it's very keyboard heavy, and it really just harkens back to the classic prog sounds that I love.
How many Classic Styx albums have you listened to?
I haven't listened to a lot of their albums. Like they're definitely more of a singles band to me
Right.
in
Yeah.
the 70s and 80s. I mean, I've listened to them for the podcast, which I hadn't listened to them, before that. So I've never really been a huge fan of their albums, but these last two albums, the one that came out last year, I love that album. Like I actually bought it on vinyl. I loved it so much. And this one, I would say, if all the songs were as great as the really good songs on it, I would be like willing to buy it. But I think it's a little bit more hit and miss. So that's why they're kind of an honorable mention for me. But I did have to mention them because I do really enjoy a lot of this album. Okay, so that's my prog stuff. Now we're getting into the stuff where Mike's probably going to be talking about as well.
I can bring up one more prog album
Okay.
that's worth mentioning because we were both kind of looking forward to it. And it made a lot of top album lists, but it isn't in my top albums. And I don't think it is in yours. And that's Steven Wilson's The Overview.
That was
Oh, yes.
number 2 prog album in Mojo's end of year list.
I think it's good, but it's very reminiscent of Pink Floyd, and it's not as original as I'd like it to be for Steven Wilson. I think everything he does sounds great. He always has amazing musicians working with him, and this is no exception. But I think that it gets a little bit boring, and it's just not interesting enough for me. But I don't think I think it's a good album. But yeah, you're right. It didn't.
Yeah, it doesn't help that it's only a few tracks, and one of the tracks is like 27, 28 minutes long. Side one of the album is just one song.
I don't mind that as long as it's interesting and it changes throughout, the entire 28 minutes. But if it's kind of the same thing over and over again, which I feel like this is, it gets a little dull.
I mean, it's good, but we were expecting better.
It sounds good. It sounds great, actually. And once again, it's probably one that I could put on just sort of in the background and not really have to listen to it too closely. And, it's enjoyable, but.
And the audiophile part of me that likes 5.1 was kind of interested. I thought, oh, this is going to sound even better in 5.1 or Atmos. And it wasn't like, oh, there's a lot of Steven Wilson stuff that really opens up and it becomes magical when it's in 5.1. And this one wasn't quite like that. So in the end, good, but not in our top picks.
Do you want to hear what Mojo picked as the top prog album?
Sure.
Hedvig Mollestad Trio, Bees in the Bonnet.
I think I listened to that, but it didn't make my list.
You listened to the Cardiacs album, didn't you?
Yeah.
And?
It's interesting. I think that I need to listen to it more. I only listened to it once. Their album from 1984 is kind of blowing my mind. Like I'm finding it to be so fascinating, and along the lines of like Cockney Rebel and Steve Harvey, it sounds a lot like that. I think it's really, really cool and interesting, but it's very like deep. Like you have to really give it time. And this album has been in the making. Well, they're two brothers, and one of them passed away a while ago now. And they've been continually working on this album since then. So it's been in the making for a long time. I didn't give it enough time. Actually, I kind of forgot about it. I should go back and listen to it some more.
The album is called LSD.
Yeah, the fact that it even came out is a really big deal because fans have been waiting for years for this to be completed and released. So
I don't recognize any of these other bands, but Jethro Tull did put out a new album in 25.
They
Curious,
did. Yes.
Curious Ruminants. And I told you that's my first Steven Wilson remix project that I've purchased. I found a used copy of the new re-release of Living the Past.
Yeah, which is such a great
4-disc set.
collection.
Yeah. Looking forward to digging into that.
Going on to non-prog stuff, I really like the Folk Bitch Trio. They're from Australia, 3 women from Australia, and 3-part harmonies for days.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'd say that I really like half of the album, and then it kind of starts to get a little bit boring.
Kind of sexy, too.
I don't know. Do you think it's sexy?
The lyrics?
Oh, I never listen to lyrics, so I don't know. But the first song, God's a Different Sword, that's my favorite song on the album. It's really, really good. Just the harmonies are just sublime. They were really influenced by Gillian Welch, apparently, and Joni Mitchell. And so it has that vibe to it.
Yeah, you sold me on it with those reference points, and I gave it a listen. We went out to the beach over the holiday weekend and listened to it in the car. My wife was a big fan; she liked it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Something about the recording though just kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Turned you off, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the vocal productions. It's just kind of dirty sounding, not as clean as I would like to. I don't know if that was an artistic choice or if it's just the lead singer's voice, maybe, or the kind of microphone they were using. I don't know what it is, but just something didn't sound quite right to me, even though their harmonies are beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's all about the harmonies on that one.
When you mentioned Gillian Welch, I mean, the
Oh,
Gillian Welch.
Gillian? I thought it was Jillian. Okay, Gillian Welch.
Is it Gillian or Jill? It's Gillian, right? I think it's Gillian.
Mike?
Gillian.
Okay,
yeah.
Gillian Welch.
Those albums sound incredible. I mean, those are audiophile.
I've never listened to her, so I don't know.
Oh God,
comparison.
So good, so good.
But I guess one thing I have found with all the things I've listened to from 2025, there's a lot of really good, really poppy stuff that came out. That is
pop music's in a very good place right now. I
think. and poppy in a way, very Beatlesque, Revolver, Rubber Soul era Beatles, very like Beach Boys, like Joe DJO, who is Joe Keery, who plays Steve Harrington on Stranger Things. Loved his album, The Crux. I mean, it's just like pure pop. Some of it is kind of like more acousticy, mellowy Beatles stuff. Some of it is like the Cars, or maybe even like bringing in stuff from the 2000s, like the Strokes and
Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
There's a couple tracks that are very Rundgren.
Are you thumbs up on the Joe album, Mike?
Yes, it actually made my top 10.
Nice. Yeah, I do intend to listen to that stuff. Haven't quite got. We're fans of Joe Keery around here, not just on Stranger Things, but he did a great job in the last season of Fargo. The role he played in that, and
I just love him, and I think that one of the things I really like about this album is it does have a lot of different styles brought in, so it doesn't get boring. It's catchy, it's poppy, it's just all around. It's a really good album.
And for people like us that are old and can remember stuff from the 70s and the early 80s, a lot of music today, you find yourself, oh, well, this sounds okay, but it sounded better when it was done by
it's too derivative.
But, and it's so derivative to the point of being unlistenable. The thing about the Joe album is that it does utilize a lot of especially 70s pop and that era musically, but it works.
It still feels fresh in a way. There's something about it.
That's funny you make that elder statesman comment, because that's kind of like when I knew I'd aged out of current music tastes or alternative music was when the Killers got really popular. And a friend of mine was, oh, it's my favorite. You got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. And all I could think of is like, yeah, it's cool and all, but I liked it better when Echo and the Bunnymen did it, or I liked it better when The Cure did it. They're just derivative of all these.
Well, that's my biggest criteria now for listening to new music is if I can get past how derivative it is. Like if it doesn't take away from my listening experience, because that's what deterred me from listening to music for so long. And since we started doing this for the podcast, I've had to sort of like suspend my opinion about that and just be like, okay, I'm just going to listen to it for what it is and not be so focused on that. And if I can enjoy the album and not just be sitting there thinking, oh, this sounds exactly like the Beach Boys, this sounds exactly like the Beatles, this sounds exactly like whatever, name your band from the 70s or 80s, then to me, it's a good album. And that's what I feel like what Mike was saying about this Joe album is that even though you can pick out the influences, it's not so obvious that there is still some uniqueness in there that feels like it doesn't just completely take away from it. And I think the whole album is good, which is also another thing that's tough to come by, where you can find an album that you want to listen to all the way through. you get enough of a variety on there too that it doesn't just get boring. I also like the new Pulp album.
Number one in both Mojo and Uncut's year-end lists, which to me was disappointing to see. Not that there's anything wrong with the Pulp album, but recently their top albums have all been these older
Yeah.
bands that had
Yeah.
their best days of the night. The Suede album, which was a really good album.
And
I don't
Suede
want
had
to
a new album that came out this year too.
and
Yeah.
another really good album this year, and that was number 2 in Mojo. Yeah, Mojo's number 1 was the Pulp album. Number 2 is Suede. These bands mean nothing to most American listeners. They were popular in Britain, but back in the 90s, like Suede was what, 92, 93 when they hit. Pulp 95.
I mean, of all those bands that were big, the Britpop bands, Oasis is really the one that I think has had the most longevity. But a lot of
Yeah.
these other bands, Americans particularly.
Well, I would say Blur has had the most longevity, but Oasis had the most commercial impact over a
Yeah.
brief period of time in the United States. Blur, more lasting impact, but
Yeah, one of the things I was going to touch on, I guess I'll touch on it now, is how many older acts put out new albums in 2025. Like I said, there's just so much music that came out in 2025. There was a lot of good music, but not a lot of great music. But I started going through, and we mentioned Pulp. The Manic Street Preachers put out an album, first time in a long time.
I've never listened to them.
Mm-mm.
Never.
Uh,
Very popular. in
Doves.
England.
Doves, who put out some really great albums in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
They put out an album for the first time in years. Paul Weller put out an album.
He's cranking out albums every year.
Yeah, he seems like he's
Not
always putting
quite
out-
every year, but Suede, Muse
Oh, yeah.
put out an album, and it's been a while since they. Green Day.
I didn't even listen to that. I didn't know that came out.
Not a lot of fanfare for Green
Yeah.
Day, I guess.
No.
Coheed and Cambria.
Mhm.
Linkin Park, My Morning Jacket, Nine Inch Nails, Papa Roach, Bush, Kings of Leon, The Water
Bush.
Boys.
Whoa, I didn't listen to any of those. Okay. Do people
mean-
know that they
Oh,
put albums out?
You didn't listen to the Dennis Hopper song? You listened to that, didn't you? The Waterboys song?
Yes.
Oh, I did listen. That was the
I
Waterboys. That's
love
right.
that song.
But I feel like that's a lot of big name bands. How did they sell? How did those albums sell?
Not that great, actually.
Yeah. The ones I did listen to, Pulp was the only one that and I've never been like a big Pulp fan or anything, but I was like, this is really cool. I like Jarvis, what's his name's?
Cocker.
Jarvis Cocker's
Cocker, yeah.
vocals, and some of it's very Beatlesque and some of it's really like moody sounding, and I thought it was really cool.
I thought it was fine. I would need to listen to it more. In fact, I just listened to the Different Class album recently, which
Yeah,
is
I
their
haven't-
big breakthrough album in the mid-90s. Common People was their best known song, is on there. One band you didn't mention, Mike, Stereolab, put out a really good new album that's just slots right in with their
Yeah.
category.
There was two I didn't mention because I'll mention them when I'm talking about.
Okay,
these.
well,
okay.
I think I'm pretty much done because everything else I had on my list, I know you're going to talk about, Mike. So if you want to go next, you're up.
On to
Well,
Michael.
So I guess I'll start with the two bands that hadn't put out stuff in a while, that put out new stuff in 2025 that I thought was worthy, in my top 10 or so. One is Stereolab, Instant Holograms on Metal Film. Their first album in 6 years, and it is one of their best albums. How we were talking about being derivative? They aren't really derivative, but they do have a sound that is very kitschy, in that kind of 50s, 60s kind of easy listening.
Like bachelor pad music. kind
Yeah,
of?
Yep.
bachelor
Yeah.
pad music type of stuff.
Definitely a Brazilian influence on their
Yes,
sound too.
yeah. The album is a really good album from them and very interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was very good.
The other was a much harder band who their catalog, I've always thought, okay, that's okay. but I've never been a big fan. But they've had a resurgence over the last couple years. Their back catalog, in fact, two of their albums keep on coming up in our top sellers, and that's the Deftones. And they put out a new album called Private Music.
That album
And
was pretty big. Like people seem excited about that one.
yeah, and it's a harder album,
Yeah.
but it is a good album all the way through. It's one of the stronger albums of the year, and I was impressed that after such a hiatus that they put out a quality piece that sounded fresh and new. One other oldie to me, but this is in the jazz world to a certain extent. In the early 80s, I started listening to a guitarist slash multi instrumentalist named Steve Tibbetts. And he had some really great albums in the early 80s on the ECM label.
Yeah.
Really adventurous soundscape type of stuff. When I first heard his stuff, it was like, oh, I've got to go and find more of his stuff. And I have basically everything he's ever put out. And he put out a new album this year called Close. It's on ECM, and it is basically background music in that it's all instrumental, and it's kind of meditational in the way he does it. It doesn't have
guitar?
So he uses guitar through synths to do
okay.
all sorts of stuff, but he incorporates a lot of percussion, especially from like Tibet and Eastern Europe influences. It's a strong album, and he hadn't put out anything for a number of years, so it was nice to hear him put out something new, and I thought it was one of the stronger jazz releases of the year. It's hard for me to pick a number one, but if someone were to put a gun to my head and say, name your number one album of 2025, I'd have to say that it was Wet Legs Moisturizer. I thought that their first album was good, but I didn't think it was great. This appealed to me more because it is more of a up party record than their first one, and it's got really killer tracks that have great
cool
riffs and hooks, from the instrumentals to the singing, and a strong album all the way through. I listened to that album more than I listened to any other album of 2025. And although I wouldn't say it's a great album, it probably is my top album of 2025.
Catch These Fists. That song, I just can't get enough of that song. It's so cool. And it's one of the more popular songs on the album, but it is such a killer song.
Wet Leg Moisturizer, number 10 on Mojo's list. Only number 50 on the uncut end of your list.
Do you not have any others on your list, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You already told us what your favorite one was, so I thought you were done.
No, I have others. The other kind of indie rock album of the year that has gotten a lot of press, especially recently, is Geese and their album Getting Killed. Their frontman Cameron Winter is the new it person in rock music, and
also had a solo album out this year, I think, right?
It was late 2024, but a lot of people are putting it on their top 10 lists of 2025. I think it's a good album, but it came out in 2024. It's not
and that album is a lot mellower. Like it's much different than the Geese album, I think.
Yeah. Geese is his Brooklyn band, and he wanted to do something with them that was more rockin'. Although most of the tracks on that album aren't really rockin', the feel of it and his voice, to me, even though it doesn't sound like the Strokes, but I get the same feeling that I did when I first heard the Strokes.
Like the Strokes with Tom York singing lead.
Well, I think he has some similarities to Julian Casablancas actually
Yes,
too, though,
it's
and
it.
the
He's got
vibe.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's got
Well,
a
he looks more like
really
Julian Casablancas than
Yeah.
yes. He's got this kind of laid back way of singing with kind of this weird deeper voice.
It's definitely a voice of distinction for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah,
Very, very mannered vocal, and I have not yet come to terms with it.
yeah. It does take some time, but once it gets into you,
Yeah.
Anything really good requires a few listens before it hits home fully.
yeah, it took me a couple times to listen to it, but I'd put that in my top 10.
I think the thing about Geese is that I mean, I said that his vocals are really what stands out the most, but actually the music is really really cool and interesting, and they go through all different kind of styles throughout that album. Some of it sounds like Tom Waits, like the music of Tom Waits, not so much the vocals, but like just weird instrumentation, and some of it's really kind of rock, some of it's more mellow. Nothing's really mellow, I guess, but it's got more of a vibe to it. Some of it kind of reminds me a lot of Jeff Buckley because it sort of has that like slinkiness to it in a way, and that's a lot in his vocals too. And I feel like he's got a mix of Carl Wallinger from World Party. He kind of reminds me of him vocally. Scott Walker, Nick Cave, people that are definitely voices of distinction, and he falls in that category for sure.
I like all of those voices, but I haven't come to
You haven't found that in this yet. Tom York too.
Tom York, wonderful vocalist. I listened to them a little, and then they were on SNL this past Saturday, and I watched the first song, and then a few bars into the second song, I'm just like, nah, it's just and I bailed on the album too after a few tracks. I just couldn't handle the vocals.
The second song they did on SNL is the first song on the album, Trinidad, and it is abrasive and very off-putting. I find it interesting that they put that as the first song on the album because it is harsh.
yeah, you need to get to the second song, Cobra.
Cobra is my favorite song on the album. That's the song that made me a fan. It's mostly in the vocals, and it's more of like a 70s feel to it. But that first song is
Yeah.
definitely harsh. And I couldn't watch them on SNL. I was like, nah, I don't need to see this. And that's how I felt. And I could see a lot of people listening to that first song and being like, what's this? And not getting past it. So if you could push through, I think it's definitely one that needs multiple listenings, and you just have to realize that it's different enough, even though there are people that I'm comparing him to that are similar. It's still unique enough, and I think it's because it's a combination of interesting vocals but very good musicianship and really cool arrangements. Do you have anybody else on your list, Mike?
Well, I'm going to just touch on so Brandy Carlisle had
Oh yes, excellent.
Returning to Myself. I was actually hoping it would be better than By the Way, which I really like that album. And the stuff that she's done since, especially the thing she did with Elton John, left me a little like, and so
That
I
was kind
was,
of a disappointment, huh?
yeah. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't.
She's
it-
she's a very generous artist. I mean,
Yes.
what she's done with Joni Mitchell,
Yeah.
Yep.
first and foremost, but
Yep.
Elton John is clearly a very significant artist in her life, and
Yep.
Yeah.
that was an important project.
No, I
for her.
And they have a
appreciate.
very close relationship
Yes.
now.
Yeah. It's great what she's doing and helping and
Well, and like giving back to the people
Yes,
that she
yeah.
was influenced by and, meant a lot to her.
this new album, there's some good rock tracks on
Yeah.
there. There's some good ballads. Her voice is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Oh, her voice is incredible.
she's a way better vocalist than I realized.
Yeah, when she gets
So
going,
talented.
it is magical. It's like Jeff Buckley. It's like,
This album had more rock stuff on it than I expected.
Yeah.
It definitely is more in that vein.
That's the one new release that I actually purchased a physical copy of this past year.
Another one from this year is Mavis Staples' Sad and Beautiful World. She's 88 years old and
Whoa.
still has it. It's a lot of covers, and she does like Frank Ocean and Leonard Cohen and
Wow.
Gillian Welch.
Sounds very eclectic.
You can tell that she knows it's a troubled world that we live in, but she still has faith. I mean, the Staples Singers were a Christian band as much as they were, or even more so than they were, a soul band back in the 70s. And so that religious part of it is still strong for her. And so I really enjoyed that album. Jeff Tweedy's Triple LP.
So you got through that thing, huh?
Yeah, even though it's a lot, it is a strong triple LP.
Not very many of those.
Yeah.
Who was the jazz artist? Kamasi Washington put out the triple LP a few years ago.
Yes. Yeah. An act called Wednesday, and their album Bleeds.
That's an interesting group. Very 90s kind of grunge sound mixed with Americana.
Yeah, like shoegaze mixed with grunge, mixed with kind of like southern rock music.
Yeah,
like
there's an
Creedence.
Americana thread in there too.
Yeah, and a female vocalist, and she's got a very interesting voice.
And their guitarist MJ Lenderman making a name for himself too as a solo artist. Really good album last year.
Yes, and so that's in my top 10. Deep Sea Diver. They're from Seattle. They signed to Sub Pop and put out an album called Billboard Heart. And if you haven't listened to that, it's really good. It's got some really strong songs on it. And Jen, who's the vocalist, is also the guitarist, and she's a great guitarist. And it's kind of fun because one of our employees, whenever they go on tour, he house sits for them and takes care of their dog. And that's been really fun to listen to stories of the band and the dog over the last year from our employee.
That is a good album. It's poppy, but still has cool guitar and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
album.
it's less rockin' than their last album and a little bit more poppy, but it's in my top 10. Another local act put out what I think is a really strong album this year, Perfume Genius, and his
I didn't know they were local.
Album Glory. Yeah, he actually did one of his first in-stores ever with us for his first album back in like 2008, 2009. His mom was there at the in-store, and the first thing he said when he got up on stage is how important Silver Platters was to him. Cool. Because his mom would take him to the South Center store, and he would sit in our listening areas and listen to all this music. And that's how he got a lot of his music from Silver Platters. And it is a really strong album. He had a performance on Jimmy Fallon that was really, he's a little bit of an exhibitionist, and he wore these pants that would make
Jim Morrison.
No, the lead singer for the Cramps. Lux Interior.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like they were going to just fall off of him.
Yes,
it was.
I do remember that, actually. I didn't realize that was him, but I remember that performance.
But the album is really good. And I'm going to mention a few others. Panda Bear, Sinister Gift. You had brought up earlier about stuff sounding very poppy in 70s, and the vocals for this really sounds like Beach Boys, Brian Wilson type stuff. If you remember a couple years ago, my album of the year was a thing that Panda Bear had done with why am I blanking on the other band? Sonic Boom. It's called Reset. But this album from this year is really good. Ty Segall, Possession. I've always been kind of a fan. I'm a big garage rock fan from the 60s, and he really incorporates a lot of fuzz and that type of stuff in his music. But this one, he kind of goes away from it and becomes more accessible.
It's more power pop kind of.
Yeah, and it's strong all the way through. There's not a weak song on it, which is much like another album that's very interesting. It's Tony Molina's On This Day. There's not a track on the album that is over 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Most of them are under a minute or like maybe a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they all are good, and it's pretty interesting.
It's basically a tour of 60s pop by way of the Byrds, Harry Nilsson, sellout era Who. He goes through all these different sounds and little snippets, just snippets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once again, not sounding derivative.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it is him keeping the songs very short, so you can't get bogged down in, oh, this just sounds like this or that. I wanted to mention one other. I think you're going to talk about Kathleen Edwards, right?
Yes.
Which I really like that album. The first 2 tracks are great.
Big fan of hers.
The rest of the album is okay. It's good, but
it's certainly not. It's not groundbreaking music. It's just
no. And the other female artist that put out something that is kind of in the same vein a little bit that I liked the album better was Margo Price, Hard-Headed Woman, that kind of alt country type of stuff. I thought that her album was, as an album, a little bit stronger than the Kathleen Edwards, although there isn't a song on the Margo Price that is as... The first 2 tracks on that Kathleen Edwards are just killer.
The one song that, well, I'll talk about it in a moment. I wanted to run a couple other things out there. These aren't favorites of mine, but things I found intriguing this past year. There's this artist called Youngblood, Yungblud. I'd never heard of this guy, and he was on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast. I listened to his stuff, and it's interesting. I don't love it necessarily, but it's an artist who's kind of keeping big rock music alive still. He's kind of drawing on, it's like Britpop combined with more of like a gothy American kind of feel. Like, like Evanescence or
he
Romance.
was a big fan and I guess friend of Ozzy Osbourne.
Right, yeah.
And just put out a new project with Aerosmith.
I listened to a little bit of that. Yeah. Kind of hard to get a handle on his music. He's experimenting with a variety of styles. I don't think he's really kind of found himself yet.
Yeah.
But he's intriguing to me. And he's a great interview subject. He's just real open and guileless. You know, it's just an interesting guy. Now, the other one I wanted to know if either of you listened to is Billy Idol put out a new album this past year, which, you know, it isn't great, but I listened to it quite a bit. And he's really going for the very modern pop production on this.
It does sound very modern. I listened to it because I saw you had it on your list. And my problem is that it just sounds too perfect.
Yeah, it's very slick. Very slick. Yeah.
And I just feel like they've got to be, you know, enhancing his vocals because
there's for sure
a few songs where you kind of get the gravelly sort of grit behind it that I would expect from him. There's some songs on there that I'm like, there is no way this is not Billy Idol. Like, it does not sound like him at all. So I just feel like it's just way too over processed and overproduced.
I don't know offhand who produced it, but it's got to be one of the hot newer name producers.
It does sound very modern
slick
in that way, but I just found it to be much too slick and fake sounding.
But I was entertained by it because it's kind of
it's kind not bad. Like
it's autobiographical. He's talking about his past quite a bit, and there's a lot of guests on it.
Yeah, Joan Jett sings on a song, and I think he was touring with her too. Avril Lavigne, I think, was on a song.
Yeah, Avril Lavigne's on there.
Mm-hmm.
It was an entertaining listen. Certainly not one of the great albums of the year. But yeah, Mike mentioned it. I do love the Kathleen Edwards album, and I love her as an artist and as a person. Saw her live up in Canada when we vacationed up there several years ago, and she played a festival up in Calgary. It was fun to see her in a live setting. But she left the music business for a few years and opened up a coffee shop in her hometown of Toronto, but she got back in the game and hasn't missed a step, fell right back into her old sound. And it's like I said, it's not groundbreaking. She is like And she would not blanch at this at all. She's like the female Tom Petty. She idolizes Tom Petty. And that's kind of the
Mhm.
sound she's going for. This kind of heartland rock with a little folk influence. She has a very natural voice, not mannered at all. No great shakes as a vocalist with great range, but a pleasant voice and very recognizable. Another distinctive voice. The one song that stuck with me more than any other was her song Need a Ride, which is later in the album. And, I don't know where she stands politically. I'm guessing it's somewhere fairly central, but she's taken aim at both sides in this song and talking about the divisiveness in contemporary society. And it's a great Neil Young influenced song. It sounded like it came right off one of Neil's mid 70s albums, like On the Beach. So
Mhm.
it's got that feel to it. And the lyric is really quite cutting, almost more to the left than the right. The key line in it is people get worked up about this and that. People get worked up about the truck I drive. Cry me a river, now you need a ride. I love that line. Just a great pair of lines. There's a wonderful song called Little Red Ranger. I don't know if that's one of the first two songs you're talking about, Mike, but she's a Canadian artist, and it's about somebody she knows, a musician trying to make it in LA, driving around in the Little Red Ranger. Never met a pair of jeans that didn't fit you perfectly. I love her. She's just great. She's so, she's just very much herself. Kind of sparky, kind of salty, swears a lot on stage, at her live show. But great to have her back making new music. As far as female artists go, two real standouts. Nico Case's new album, which I think is fantastic, Neon Gray, Midnight Green. Although she might have lost a few listeners early in the if you guys listen to this record.
I did put it on for a bit, and I kind of tracked through it, and I was like, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, track 2 is going to throw people. It's kind of experimental. It's kind of doing her Laurie Anderson impression. But the next track after that, Wreck, is wonderful. And a lot of this album is elegiac. The Winchester Mansion of Sound, I think, is referencing the late Dexter Romweber, who had a band called Flat Duo Jets. If you're a White Stripes fan, that's
Mhm.
something you definitely want to check out. Big influence on Jack White. Kind of a similar sound with guitars and drums, no bass. But her music is just entrancing. And you want to talk about music that you really have to live with for a long time, because her lyrics are very poetic, they're very abstract, and you got to listen to her songs quite a bit. They're dense, they're kind of hard to wade
Yeah.
into, but
Yeah.
the music is just wonderful. I mean, it's orchestral pop music. I noticed a kind of a Van Dyke Parks feel to some of these songs. The other one that I thought was fantastic, Emma Pollock put out a new album this year, and it had been quite a few years, I think, since her last solo record. So the band, the Delgados, broke up, mid 2000s, and they reformed fairly recently, but I don't think they didn't put out any new music. I think they reformed to tour. But this is a Scottish group that, most people in America are going to be unaware of. They're on an indie label, their own label, in fact, Chemical Underground. But I love this band. My sister turned me on to them years ago. She gave me a copy of their final album, Universal Audio, and I kind of went back from there. But really hits the sweet spot with just big orchestral arrangements. And she is a really wonderful vocalist. I didn't really appreciate what a good singer she was, but I just love her voice.
Yeah, I listened to it. I really like her voice a lot.
Yeah.
I really liked the vocals, and I liked the cool like cellos and different strings, and yeah.
So those were things that I listened to quite a bit. Mike, you mentioned Ty Segall, a band that I kind of relate to that garagey scene there in San Francisco, but they're all over the place musically. And like Ty Segall, very prolific. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Their
Mhm.
last record I've just started listening to, Phantom Island, came out in June. I guess the easiest, simplest description of it would be prog disco. I mean, it's very rhythmically oriented, but
Yeah, they go all over the
Yeah.
place. And this one, I think that's a pretty good
Description.
descriptor of what. And there's some really good tracks on it. And I thought it was a good album. It just didn't make it into. It's one that I did listen to all the way through. The Nico Case, I actually haven't listened to the full album. I've only heard the tracks that we've played in the store when it was first out. But I did listen to all of the King Gizzard. It's one of their stronger
It's pretty
releases.
long too, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're putting out 3-4 albums a year.
Oh
They're
yeah, they're so
a
prolific.
Yeah.
legendary live act. I
Mhm.
think that's probably the best way to experience King Gizzard. They're an Australian group, but they have touched on just about every possible genre of music
Yeah.
already in their young career. I don't know how many albums they've put out, at least 20, right? I mean,
Yeah, it is ridiculous. They're basically the Grateful Dead of Australia already, and and they've been around for a quarter of the time that Grateful Dead was around.
well, for album, I got to go with my Canadian homies, Sloan. They put out a new album this year. You want to talk about an incredible, consistent run of greatness. I mean, this is a group that's been together since they started recording in the early 90s. They've put out 14 albums now and just consistently great stuff throughout. I mean, some are better than others, obviously. So I got into Sloan on their 12th record. They'd been on my radar really from the beginning, mainly because of one of these three magazines I talked about at the top, Jack Rabbit, Big Takeover. Huge, huge crusader for Sloan for years. So I'd known about them for a long time. An old girlfriend liked them, but I don't think I ever got around to listening to them at the time. So it took me a while. And then I finally, and I think we've probably touched about this in a past episode, but my introduction to Sloan was seeing them live up in Calgary at Calgary Stampede. I'd never listened to any of their music, and I went to see them live and was just blown away at how good they were. And they're playing mainly songs off their newest record. This is a veteran band. They're now middle-aged guys. And it could have been like greatest hits for all I know. It was that good. And that album, it's called 12, is just great start to finish. And one of the things I love about Sloan, and really any great band, is, sequencing an album is always an art, and it's usually front load your record with your best work. But Sloan, you're going to find gems like second to last track,
I
third to
love
last
that.
track.
I love it when bands
Yes.
do that. Yeah.
My favorite song on 12 was like one of the last, not the last song. So you like to go out on a bang, right? But usually your weakest songs are going to be like the song or two before the last song.
Yeah.
But again, this album, Here We Go Again, Collect Yourself, great songs right before the end of the record. So the wonder of Sloan, it's four guys. It's been the same four guys from the beginning. They all write songs. They all sing lead vocals, and they share the wealth. So most of their albums are evenly distributed, with each member of the band getting an equal number of songs. So when you see them live, when it's time for the drummer to sing his songs, he steps up front, straps on a guitar, bass player gets back behind it. So they rotate instruments. Really cool.
Yeah.
And it's the same four guys throughout. They're from Halifax originally, now based in Toronto. But it starts off with Capital Cooler, which Capital Cooler is Jay Ferguson, who's the rhythm guitarist. The lead guitarist is Patrick Pentland, bassist Chris Murphy, drummer Andrew Scott. Murphy's songs tend to be my favorites. He's the strongest vocalist of the four, but the secret weapon is the drummer, Andrew Scott. His songs are really different from the other three guys. Sloan in general is kind of a power pop, classic power pop band. His songs are usually heavier, more psychedelic, kind of very much a mid-60s Dylan influence in structure, kind of drawing on 60s psych and shifting time signatures and keys and kind of bouncing around. Very different from the other guys' stuff. And always look forward to hearing his.
Somebody sounds like T-Rex, because I listened to it and I was like, okay, I'm getting Revolver, Rubber Soul. And then a song came out and I was like, this is T-Rex.
That would be the Dream Destroyer, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Dream Destroyer. That's Patrick That's Pentland. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so Capital Cooler's Jay Ferguson. And the song is about a long since raised classic theater in their hometown of Halifax. But you listen to it, and you could certainly draw parallels to our current political climate here in the USA, and obviously our our brothers up north are very concerned about us as somebody who makes regular trips north of the border and constantly feels like he has to apologize for whatever's going on
Yeah.
down here. That
Yep.
hit home. So clever, clever, but I mean they're just so consistently good year after year. Great live act, by all accounts, great people. It's an easy band to root for, an easy band to love, and they're drawing on just the classic Beatles,
Yeah.
Beach Boys, and then like 70s rock. I mean, it's just a beautiful stew that they put together, and they're paragons of the power pop genre, and they've never let me down. Just 14 albums with the same four guys in the group, consistently good throughout. I'm still just kind of scratching the surface of discovering their entire catalog. Really, I've only listened to their last three records, and then they had a great album called Navy Blues, which is kind of a heavier rock album, came out in '98. And then kind of their breakthrough album was Twice Removed, which I know one publication said was the greatest Canadian rock album ever made. Their song Pen Pals on that lead track, one of my favorite of their songs. But the rest of their catalog, I mean, it's still waiting for me to get out there and discover it. But as far as listening to an album start to finish, I've listened to this more than anything. So that's going to have to be my album pick for 2025. And sadly, they're not touring down here. So,
And I have to admit, I haven't listened to the album, and I really love. I've got a lot of Stone albums.
which is your favorite?
I'd have to. I think Navy, was it Navy Blue?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Navy
I
Blues.
think that, yeah, I remember really liking that one.
That's probably
when
their
it
heaviest.
came out.
Probably their heaviest album.
I remember the Double Cross. I really liked. I think Parallel Play was another one that.
Yep.
And they're on one of my favorite record labels, Yep Rock, has put out a number of their albums.
Yeah, they're American labels, Yep Rock. They have their own indie
Yeah.
label, Murder Records.
Murder Records, yeah.
I've got a lot of listening ahead of me to get into that Sloan catalog. Looking for. Plus, I think we've talked about this before, Cheryl. A lot of my favorite bands are groups of record geeks, just people who
Yeah.
are just super nerdy and into music and collect. And Dramarama is a good example. One of my favorite American bands. They're just all super geeky record guys. And this is another example. These guys are just all of them just super into music, very knowledgeable about music and music history, and a lot of Easter eggs. If you're a music fan or a pop culture fan, there's a lot of Easter eggs to discover, and not only in their songs but their videos. They're constantly referencing classic movies, and just a fun band. Puts a smile on your face. It's hard to make happy music, especially in 2025.
And there was a
2026.
lot of it. That's what I was really surprised by, how much music I listened to that was really super power pop, very much in a happy, good vibes feeling. Maybe people just really want to put themselves in that space in any way they can right now. And that's what I was hearing in a lot of the music that came out this year.
I did want to mention before we close out, were 4 reissues. I love reissues.
I was
of
gonna
things.
head down that path, but I'm glad you took us there, Mike. And we should remind people that all the stuff we're talking about can be purchased at Silver Platters, 3 locations: Sodo, Linwood, and Bellevue.
Yep.
They've been reissuing the Talking Heads, and this year, more songs about buildings and food.
My favorite Talking Heads album.
Yeah.
A super deluxe edition come out, and it's really a cool package with everything that a Heads fan would want, an audiophile would want. It is a well put together package. The Replacements Let It Be deluxe edition is a really nice. I mean, Let It Be is probably my favorite Replacements album.
An album from 1984 that I've just finally started listening to.
I haven't gotten to
Yeah.
that one yet.
Oh, you haven't listened to Let It Be yet?
I have in the past, but not in our 1984.
Oh, and then yeah.
I go chronologically, so we just haven't gotten to that point in the calendar.
Yep.
Right now, I'm on Purple Rain.
I just listened
okay.
to that too. Yes.
And then Radiohead's Hail to the Thief live recordings.
The last Radiohead album that I listened to more than a couple of times.
Yeah, and the live recordings from this album, really shows how strong a band they were
That's a
live.
great
I mean,
album, really is.
Yeah.
it is kind of a new thing for Radiohead fans. Also, it's the one reissue this year that I get asked a lot of times, what is your favorite album of all time? And of course, that is unanswerable. It changes throughout the years. But the way I usually answer that question is there is one album that no matter how I'm feeling, I can always listen to this album and it's great. And that is Nick Drake's Five Leaves Left.
And that was the #1 reissue in both Mojo and Uncut for 2025.
They made this big deluxe reissue, The Making of Five Leaves Left. It's too much for someone who's not a Nick Drake fan. I mean, it's enough just to listen to the album. But for those of us who have obsessed about Nick Drake and that album, the amount of stuff that they put into this, demos and him talking about, which is really hard to find anything, hearing Nick Drake talk about anything.
Yeah.
And what's really strange is when he's talking, he mumbles. It's very hard to
not
understand
surprising.
him.
Yes, seems
But when
like-
he sings, it's so clear. I mean, it's so interesting. But you mentioned you can find all these things at Silver Platters. Unfortunately, we got our initial shipment of this deluxe package. It sold out within a few days, and that was it. It hasn't gone back in print. They made a really small amount of them, and unfortunately, I didn't buy it.
You didn't?
No.
I remember the first time I ever heard of Nick Drake was seeing the Fruit Tree box set at Silver Platters.
Yeah.
I'd
Yep.
never heard of him before that. And then eventually discovered his music. And obviously, if you're a big Nick Drake fan, you want to hear recordings of him phoning in grocery orders. I mean, it's just anything.
If they unearth anything, it's amazing because,
Yeah.
there's just such little material available.
One other reissue we definitely should mention is finally they released the Buckingham Nicks album this last
Yes.
year.
Yes.
Why it took over 50 years for this to come back into print is just mind-boggling to me. I remember finally hearing this, and only fairly recently being in a record store and they were playing it, and I'm like, this is a really good record. Why is this not available?
One thing I will
Yep.
say, I wish they would have changed the album cover. Just
well,
for Stevie's
would-
sake.
I think that's probably one of the big reasons that it stayed buried for so long. is
I know, but they could have
Stevie
put
Nicks was horrified by the album
yes,
cover.
and I understandably so, but they could have put an alternate photo on the cover or done something to take away from the impact it had on her, because I think that was a big reason why she wanted it buried, but they could have changed that cover
But the
for
record,
her
it's,
sake.
the
The
record
record itself is really good.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
some of it's great.
it's not. It does not pale in comparison to the first Fleetwood Mac album. They did.
Nope. There's
At
no
all.
reason why the music should have been buried for so long. And that was a big seller too, wasn't it, Mike?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Amazing that was out of print for so long.
There's not a lot of things like that really left that have not seen the light of day.
One other reissue, I almost plopped for another reissue about the same time I got the Jethro Tull Living in the Past, Jimi Hendrix Bold as Love reissue with the box set, I think 4 discs.
Yeah. And I didn't splurge for that, but I have the Blu-ray mix of it.
You didn't get the 9-disc Ghost is Born Wilco reissue?
No. Although a good album. There was a number of good reissues this year. Are you a Husker Du fan?
Oh, yes, I definitely am going to get that eventually. The live box set.
Yeah. Yeah.
Husker Du, it's one of those frustrating things. I mean, people who are big fans of the band couldn't imagine them sounding any other way, but it's hard to listen to them and not I mean, New Day Rising is practically unlistenable. It sounds so awful. I remember listening to that for the first time at Silver Platters. I think somebody traded it in. They thought someone was wrong with it.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about cassettes. There are a few albums that I think sound best on cassette in your car. And New Day Rising is one of them. and the Minutemen, Double Nickels on the Dime.
Hmm, hmm.
I've listened to it on CD and it's like,
It's made to be
no,
played in a car.
it sounded best on my cassette in the car. And I re-listened to it once on cassette, and I was like, it does sound better on cassette. Actually, most of the Husker Du replacements catalog up till about Warehouse for Husker Du
My favorite.
is best listened to on cassette.
I'm just getting. I haven't quite got to Zen Arcade, but Double Nickels on the Dime. They both came out in 1984. So
They both
they're
came on the same day.
the same day. Yes.
Yes.
Double Nickels I've listened to quite a bit, and I'm great album, but I haven't listened to Zen Arcade.
So Big Takeover's number one was the Sloan record. It always is with Jack Rabbit. Huge fan. Pulp got number one in both Mojo and Uncut. Again, somewhat disappointing to see that, but I haven't listened to the Pulp album enough.
I like it, but I'd rather see a new artist,
Right,
or a
right.
newer artist get that. You know,
Mojo went Pulp 1, Suede 2. Suede was
Mm.
3, and Uncut was Stereolab's album 2. Stereolab number 6 in the Mojo top 10.
I didn't really like the Suede album that much. It was too generic sounding.
Haven't listened to it yet, but I really liked the one before it a lot. Number 3 was CMAT, C-M-A-T, which is a female artist named Sierra Mary Alice Thompson. Her album Euro Country, number 3 on Mojo's 2025 top 10. Big Thief, number 4. I've tried listening to them. Not a big fan of the vocalist, Adrienne Lenker. She's put out solo stuff as well, pretty well reviewed.
I like her stuff, including her solo stuff. She had a strong album, I think it was last year. And I thought it was a good album, but it wasn't top 10 material for me.
Number 5, Annie and the Caldwells, Can't Lose My Soul. They're a gospel act. Used to be in a group called the Staples Junior Singers. Stereolab 6, Robert Forster, formerly the Go-Betweens. Number 7 was Strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8 was the Tubbs, Cotton Crown. Number 9, Adrian Sherwood, The Collapse of Everything. I remember listening to Adrian Sherwood stuff at Silver Platters on
Oh,
Onion. Yeah. And then Wet Legs, Moisturized, number 10. Again, I mentioned was just 50 in the Uncut list. Rest of the Uncut top 10, Pulp, Stereolab, Suede, 1, 2, 3. Wednesday makes number 4 with Bleeds. Richard Dawson, number 5, End of the Middle. Ryan Davis and the Roadhouse Band, number 6, called New Threats from the Soul. Number 7, Cass McCombs, Interior Live Oak. Jeff Tweedy's triple album, Twilight Override, was 8. Bon Iver's newest album, Sable Fable, number 9. And number 10, Robert Plant with Susie Diane, Saving Grace.
I didn't listen to the Robert Plant album.
It's okay, but
not
as
good as the Alison Krauss duet albums.
Yeah, it lacks the depth and imagination that his recent work has had.
I've liked his more recent albums even more than the stuff that he did with Alison Krauss, because it's really cool, kind of world music feel to it. But I didn't listen to the one.
It's interesting looking at all these top 10 lists, you know, Rolling Stone and
All Music Guide,
Mojo and All Music Guide. They all are pretty different.
Yeah.
There's very few albums that are on everyone's top 10 to top 50. It's
Except
interesting.
Pulp and Suede, I guess.
It just shows you how much music came out and how much good music came out this last year. It may not be for everyone, but I think it also points to usually every year there's 1 or 2 albums that everyone just loves.
Yeah. And I noticed that Taylor Swift's album isn't on any of these lists.
I think it's on the Rolling Stone list.
Oh, is it? Okay. Sabrina Carpenter and, other big artists.
I like both their records. You didn't like the Taylor Swift album, right?
No, I thought it was so dumb.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, there wasn't anything that just stood out as being something that was kind of universally loved, except maybe Pulp, because it was number 1 for those magazines.
All right, again, so recapping our 2025 recap, my song is Need a Ride by Kathleen Edwards, my album based on the bestseller by Sloan. Cheryl, once again, your tops for 2025 are?
Probably my favorite album was Joe, The Crux. And Song is Wet Leg, Catch These Fists. Love it.
And Michael?
Top album is Wet Leg Moisturizer. Top song. I'm going to be honest, the top song for this last year, I can't even remember what it is. It's something that I ran into on Apple Music. Apple Music has really gotten very interesting in some of their editors' new music picks that they have in different genres. And I was listening to one of the alternative lists this last summer, and there was a song from a band that I can't even remember their name, and it was such a cool song, and I can't remember what it is.
Don't know the name of the band.
That's so helpful, Mike. Could you hum it for us? Here, let me turn on my app, and maybe you can hum the tune, and it'll Soundhound will pick it up.
He doesn't know how it sounds. He doesn't know who it is. He doesn't know the name of it, but he knows it's the best song he's heard all year.
It's been bothering me for the last month.
Isn't this ironic? The guy who owns multiple music stores would do the customer thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Know that there's a song, I love it, but I don't know what it sounds like. I don't know who it is. And we'd sit there and be able to pull it out of thin air, but I don't think we're going to be able to pull this one out.
But it was on Apple Music. I remember that. It was on Apple Music.
Let's go back and listen to all the Apple Music playlists from 2025.
All right, so that'll do it for our 2025 recap. When Cheryl and I next get together without husband Mike, we'll be adding more songs from 1984 to our ever-growing and expanding Gen Excellent playlists. But until then, I'm Matt.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Mike.
Take care, everybody.